Chapter 2838, Here you go. Thank you. In the pavilion, the lady handed Sacred Feather to Wang Xian after 2 hours. She was frowning and clearly had some enlightenment. I can let you comprehend for 2 hours here every day. Wang Xian looked at her and said with a smile. All right, thank you very much. After the lady finished her sentence, she disappeared immediately. Clearly, she wanted to absorb what she had comprehended in the past 2 hours. She's quite sensible. Wang Xian watched her disappear and mumbled to himself. He smiled and walked into the room. Back in the room, he continued to nurture Sacred Feather. For the next 2 days, Wang Xian spent the rest of his time nurturing Sacred Feather other than spending 2 hours in the pavilion to let the lady comprehend for 2 hours. 111. Until 5 days later, the entire Sacred Feather trembled violently. There was a faint shadow of the Wind Divine Dragon flickering on it. Am I going to succeed? Wang Xian was excited. Once the nurturing was successful and Sacred Feather fused with unbeginning Sacred Wings, he would have one more attribute. Wind attribute. At that time, his strength would also increase a little. The current Sacred Feather was very different from when he first got it. Especially just now, the entire Sacred Feather was slowly transforming into a dragon scale. Although it still looked like a feather, it was very close to a dragon scale. The Wind Divine Dragon spun. With a thought, unbeginning Sacred Wings appeared behind Wang Xian. The moment unbeginning Sacred Wings appeared, Sacred Feather and Sacred Wings trembled at the same time. Roar roar. A faint and inaudible dragon roar was heard. The entire Sacred Feather glowed brightly and flew towards the Sacred Wings. Like a combination of mechas, Sacred Feather landed on the Sacred Wings. Wang Xian's eyes lit up. In the next moment he sensed that he could touch the surrounding wind attribute and the law of wind attribute. He waved his arm and the law of wind blade appeared and floated in front of him. Wang Xian was delighted and the wind blade gradually condensed. Gotcha. However, in the next moment the law of wind blade collapsed. Wang Xian was stunned. However, when he sensed the position behind him, his face gradually darkened. The primordial Sacred Wings were bone wings, and there were glowing bones on them. However, at the corner of one of the wings, there was a holy feather floating on it, and then there was nothing else. It only had one Sacred Wing which was very inconspicuous. Instead, it was somewhat of an eyesore. This is. Seeing this, Wang Xian's face darkened. This is only a Sacred Feather. There are many holy feathers on the unbeginning Saint Wings, but I only found one. He thought to himself with a dark expression. In other words, there were still many Sacred Feathers in the windless forest that he had yet to find. Only by finding all of them could the wings be considered complete. Wang Xian's expression changed. The last time he entered the windless forest, he had only entered the periphery of the windless forest valley. But even at the edge he almost died. If they were to enter the center, wouldn't it mean certain death? Do I have to increase my strength before going in to search for it? Wang Xian frowned and revealed a helpless look. No, I remember that the heavenly formation mentioned a windless day. That woman also mentioned a windless day to her disciple. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. With a flick of his palm, Sacred Feather appeared in his hand. After nurturing one Sacred Feather, Wang Xian realized that he could sense the law of wind. However, if he were to use the wind attribute, the attack power would at most reach the second level Immortal God King, which was useless. I'll ask that woman tomorrow. Wang Xian thought to himself as he laid on the bed to rest helplessly. Hey, thanks for the tea. The next day, when Wang Xian arrived at the pavilion, the woman was already sitting there with a pot of freshly brewed tea beside her. It's all right. Since you like tea, I have some here. The woman shook her head. Wang Xian smiled and sat at the side. With a flick of his palm, Sacred Feather flew towards her. When she saw Sacred Feather, she was taken aback and surprised. Did it change? Yes. Wang Xian nodded and asked, What's the situation like on a windless day? Can you tell me more? The windless day is a special situation in the windless forest. Every 10,000 years, there will be a storm in the windless forest. At that time, the attacks from the trees in the entire windless forest will be much weaker. At that time, it will be the most exciting time for the wind attribute cultivators. The treasures in the windless forest, including the wind jade and the windless forest valley, will tempt the celestial emperors. At that time, some celestial emperors who are not of the wind attribute might come too. The woman said. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and his eyes flickered. The windless day is coming in 3 months. The woman continued. Wang Xian nodded slightly. It seemed like his luck was not too bad. I really don't know how you got such a treasure with your strength. It's your luck to be alive. However, even if it's a windless day, don't even think about entering the windless forest valley. No matter how weakened it is, it's still not a place you can enter. The woman swept a glance at him and continued. Wang Xian chuckled and changed the topic. Oh yes, is there a platform here in the 8 wilderness continent? Something like an AI? Yes, I'll get someone to send you one later. The woman nodded. Alright. Wang Xian nodded, took a sip of tea and started savoring it. The woman took out a communication stone plate and sent a few messages. Seeing that Wang Xian did not reply, she sized up Sacred Feather and continued to comprehend. Wang Xian, handsome, come here. This is what Master wants me to give you. Before long he heard a voice. He looked over and saw 2 women and a middle-aged man standing in front of him. They looked at their master and spoke carefully. The 3 of them were Yeluing and the rest. Wang Xian saw the communication stone plate in their hands and walked towards them. Thanks a lot. He took over the communication stone plate and said with a smile. You're welcome. Master wants us to send this to you. This is a new 8 wilderness array plate. I've added you as a friend. You can look for me if you need anything. Yeluing said passionately. All right. Wang Xian nodded. Oh yes, handsome, what have you been doing with our master these few days? Are you going to be our master's disciple? I think you're not bad. After you become our master's disciple, I'll take care of you in the future. Yeluing asked with beaming eyes. They were surprised that their master and this young man had been together for a few days consecutively. They had only encountered such a situation when their master had just taken them in. Of course, they had not thought of other situations, nor did they have any wild thoughts or guesses. It's all right. I can't stay in the 8 wilderness continent for too long. Wang Xian smiled and shook his head. Chapter 2839. After exchanging a few words with Yeluing and the rest, Wang Xian returned to the pavilion. The 3 of them did not dare to follow him to the pavilion. It could be seen that they were still very respectful towards their master. Wang Xian returned to the pavilion, took out the communication stone plate, switched it on and started checking. The function of this communication stone disc was no different from the smart brain of the Imperial Star region. Entertainment, current events, all kinds of things were the same. There were not many humans in the 8 Desolation continent, not even 100th or 1000th of the human population of the other star areas. There were only tens of thousands of continents inhabited by humans. The communication stone plate was made by the largest power here, 8 Desolation. Wang Xian looked at some of the information on it. There were all sorts of information about the various secret realms in 8 Desolations and information about a certain expert who had barged into the 8 Desolations region. There were also battles going on in other places. The vast wilderness continent was very small, but a large number of experts had gathered here. Therefore, there were quite a lot of interesting things happening here. The disciple of the Upper Water God Emperor is invincible and peerless. As soon as he appeared, he defeated several core disciples of the 8 Desolates. He is invincible among the young generation. A peerless genius with invincible battle techniques and earth-shattering handsomeness. He is the last disciple of the Upper Water Divine Emperor and the brightest star of the 8 Wastelands Great Continent in the future. As Wang Xian browsed through the messages, he suddenly saw 2 posts. When he saw the name on it, he was slightly stunned, and his whole person revealed an extremely shocked expression. Invincible in battle? What a familiar name, especially the titles of these 2 posts. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like something he had done back then. Invincible Battle Mage, that narcissistic and coquettish fellow from the Tianzi continent's Battle Mage clan. He was also the closest to Wang Xian since he entered this resplendent world. Jean Fa Wudi possessed a powerful bloodline. Back then he was taken away by an expert from a powerful faction. At that time, Wang Xian thought he had been taken away by the experts from the imperial court. But later on, he used the power of the Dragon Palace to find out that there was no such person in the imperial dynasty. This piqued his curiosity. As time passed, Wang Xian had almost forgotten about this guy. Now that he saw this familiar name, he was both astonished and pleasantly surprised. Clicking on the 2 posts, Wang Xian could tell at a glance that they were posts posted by Invincible Fighter himself. This fellow had done the same thing back in the Tianzi continent. The post was nothing more than boasting that he was a peerless prodigy, the brightest star in the future of the 8 Desolate Land, and an invincible God Emperor in the future. He looked at it and couldn't help but smile. Then he searched for Invincible Warrior's personal page. If the heavens didn't give birth to me, my battle techniques would be invincible, and the 8 Desolates would be like a long night. Looking at the introduction on his personal page, Wang Xian was 100% sure that he was the narcissistic yet coquettish guy. But how did this guy come here from the Imperial Star region? Could it be that the one who accepted him as a disciple was the Shang Water God Emperor? Wang Xian was curious as he thought to himself. Becoming the disciple of a God Emperor, this invincible combat technique was not bad at all. Furthermore, he received a piece of news from the two posts that invincible battle law had the strength of a 7th order undying God King. At this age, this kind of strength could be said to be very strong. With a powerful master and powerful strength, invincible battle techniques had also become unrestrained. However, the homepage had only been updated half a year ago, so it should have only become active during this half a year. This is really fate. Speaking of which, when he saw the message of invincible battle techniques, he started to miss this guy. He should find some time to catch up with this guy. At the same time, in a luxurious palace, a handsome and imposing young man with his head slightly raised sneezed. "Which pretty lady is thinking of me?" he murmured, flicked his long hair, and walked towards a group of people with a warm smile. His eyes fell on an extremely beautiful lady. In Blue Moon Planet, Wang Xian walked towards his room with Sacred Feather. Blue Moon Planet was what Wang Xian knew from the communication stone plate. It was the name of the planet he was currently on. After entering the room and nurturing Sacred Feather, Wang Xian had nothing else to do and continued to look at the various messages on the communication stone plate. "Little brother Wang Xian, are you there?" Not long after, a voice was heard. Wang Xian felt Yeluing and the other two. He opened the door and walked out. "Hi there, what's the matter?" Wang Xian looked at the three of them and asked. "Nothing, handsome brother Wang Xian. You're really an enigma. Come, let's go. We'll bring you for supper and show you around. Blue Moon Planet is the most beautiful at night." Yeluing waved at him and said with a smile. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. "All right, thank you. Little brother Wang Xian, you don't have to be so polite," the steady 5th senior brother said with a smile. "Let's go." Yeluing urged Wang Xian as she walked out excitedly. A blue moon hung in the night sky outside, but it couldn't be considered as a moon. The so-called blue moon in the sky was the celestial luster sea, a void ocean. Under the illumination of the celestial luster sea, the night was indeed beautiful. "Let's go. We'll bring you to eat some really delicious food," Yeluing said happily as she led him around the city. Wang Xian had nothing to do, so he followed along to enjoy the delicacies. In the following period of time, Yeluing, who was very familiar with him, dragged him out to play from time to time. From time to time, she would persuade Wang Xian to become her master's disciple. This way she wouldn't be the junior sister anymore. The three of them had good temperaments, and Wang Xian gradually became familiar with them. During the day, Yeluing's master would spend 2 hours comprehending Sacred Feather every day. Wang Xian could sense some changes in her body. Perhaps this woman could really break through to the Emperor God realm. "Are you going to enter the windless forest on the windless day 5 days later?" Close to 3 months passed by quickly. On this day, the girl with the surname Hong Feng suddenly asked Wang Xian. Hong Feng was the girl's surname. Wang Xian had heard it from Yeluing, but he didn't know her actual name. "Yes." Wang Xian nodded his head. He had stayed here for so long just to wait for the windless day to arrive before entering the windless forest again. "This time you'll follow a few of my disciples. I'll get them to take care of you," the girl continued. "There's no need for that." Wang Xian shook his head. The girl frowned when she heard his rejection. She felt that this young man was a little stubborn. "How about this? You can control the wind, and I'll see your strength and understanding of the wind," the girl said after a few seconds of silence. "Huh?" Wang Xian looked at her and was a little shocked. "It's fine. Show me." The girl stared at him and said again. Chapter 2840, It's all right. Show it to me. Wang Xian's lips twitched uncontrollably when he heard what the lady said. Should I show her my wind attribute? Wang Xian possessed the wind attribute with Sacred Feather. However, due to the limitations of Sacred Feather, his wind attribute was still weak. He only possessed the attack strength of a 2nd order immortal king. But if he were to engage in a real battle, Wang Xian could rely on his understanding of the wind attribute to fight those at a higher level. However, even if Huang Xiaolong was able to deal with a 3rd order immortal god king realm expert, Huang Xiaolong was still a rookie. Even the weakest expert in the Dragon Palace possessed such strength. Alright. Wang Xian understood the lady's goodwill. His lips curved into a smile as he waved his arm. A mini tornado appeared in his hand. The tornado spun freely in front of him. He could easily change the direction of the tornado with just a thought. Huh. The lady was taken aback when she saw Wang Xian's control over the wind. Use your strongest attack to attack me. The lady's expression changed slightly as she said to Wang Xian. Strongest attack of the wind attribute? Wang Xian pursed his lips and asked. Yes, attack me. The lady nodded, not noticing the other meaning behind his words. All right. Wang Xian smiled and waved his arm. A green gourd was formed. In the next instant, a green flying sword flew out from the gourd and attacked the lady. The lady stared at the green gourd and flying sword as her eyes lit up. Great! She couldn't help but exclaim as her eyes were filled with shock. Bam! She reached out and caught the flying sword easily. Huh! But soon she frowned and looked at Wang Xian. Use your strongest attack. Don't worry, you can't hurt me. The lady said. This is indeed the strongest attack of the wind attribute that I have mastered. Wang Xian chuckled and said. Strongest attack? I can sense that you're a 6th order immortal king. Why is your attack so weak? The lady frowned. This is already my strongest attack. Wang Xian repeated. The wind attribute was indeed his strongest means of attack. This attack was imitating the immortal slaying gourd. This attack could allow him to fight those of a higher level than him. The girl raised her eyebrows and looked at Wang Xian. She felt that he was a little mysterious. Even with his peak God King stage strength, he refused to accept him as a disciple. On top of that, he would be able to obtain a 9th order undying God King stage wind jade and that mysterious feather. He exuded a mysterious aura. Your green gourd, as well as your control over the wind attribute, are practically unprecedented. You're a natural celestial. She did not pursue Wang Xian for too many things. Her eyes fell on the green gourd as she spoke in surprise. And? Wang Xian nodded his head. What a joke. Although he didn't use the unbeginning sacred wings to control the wind element, he had the inheritance of the wind divine dragon. He had the immortal slaying gourd that could release an attack of the emperor god level. Currently, the immortal beheading gourd contained 4 wind-attributed immortal beheading swords. When all of them were unleashed, even a first-order god emperor realm expert would have to dodge in fear. It was no exaggeration to say that his understanding of the wind attribute was even higher than the woman before him. This is the strongest move that I know. I call it the immortal slaying gourd. As Wang Xian spoke, he looked at the woman before him and pursed his lips. He was prepared to educate her. Of course, he meant to educate others. Within my gourd there's a vacuum world. When I open the gourd, I condense the wind attribute laws into a sword and use it to block the exit. When I control the flying sword to fly out, I begin to compress the immortal slaying gourd and instantly release a terrifying attack. Wang Xian said plainly. This attack was somewhat similar to a vacuum cannon. Although it sounded simple, it was extremely difficult to control. This was a test of one's control over the wind attribute. With Wang Xian's Emperor God level control, it was a piece of cake. A God Emperor's divine ability should be similar to this. Covering a region and condensing a terrifying attack within a region is also a divine ability. Of course, it's too complicated. You won't be able to comprehend it with just a few words. You have to rely on yourself. Wang Xian looked at her and said plainly. As he spoke, he gradually condensed an immortal slaying gourd. It was a transparent immortal slaying gourd. From the outside, one could see the changes within the immortal slaying gourd. There were strong shackles and breaking through a major realm. This wasn't something that could be comprehended with just a few words. However, Wang Xian possessed the inheritance of the wind divine dragon. This was akin to the pinnacle existence in the universe guiding a god king to a breakthrough. Was it easy? Yes. The reason why powerful clans and existences could cultivate to the pinnacle was firstly because of resources and secondly, inheritance. Inheritance was equivalent to the guidance of a teacher. When the girl saw Wang Xian condensing the immortal slaying gourd in front of her, her body trembled and she revealed a shocked expression. He chuckled softly, turned around and walked back into the house. The immortal slaying gourd condensed from the wind attribute floated there. After more than 10 minutes, it gradually dissipated. However, even when the immortal slaying gourd dissipated, she still stood there motionlessly. You still want to guide me? I'll be the one guiding you. Wang Xian revealed a smile. As for guiding her in her cultivation, it was because Wang Xian had a good impression of her. When he displayed the powerful treasures, she didn't show any signs of greed. She was still a good person. She was still thinking of guiding and helping him. In that case, he might as well help her. All the causes and effects were caused by this girl herself. Good karma begets good results. The windless day will be in 5 days. By then there will be many experts from the windless forest. It's time to prepare. By then I'll have to get Tianjin and the rest to come over, Wang Xian mumbled. Based on his understanding during this period of time, the windless day was considered an important day in the 8 wilderness continent. On every windless day, there would be many God Emperor experts entering. Even if they weren't wind attribute cultivators, they would still enter in search of treasures. Even if they couldn't use it themselves, they could still sell it. As for wind attribute cultivators, there were even more of them. By then the windless forest would be a feast. Naturally, Wang Xian had to be prepared. By then he would bring Tianjin, Ba Qi, Devil-Sha and Ao Yao with him. Even if he encountered other powerful forces, he could still fight them. Wang Xian had to get the sacred feather of the unbeginning Saint Wings. Anyone who dared to compete with him would be his enemy. He had to be prepared for a great battle. He had to get it. Chapter 2841, A Windless Day. Chapter 2847, A Windless Day. Dragon King, we are now in a rather deep place in the 8 Desolations 6 Directions forest. Might take a long time to get there. We will get there as fast as we can. Skyare Orochi soon sent a message. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw their reply. Tianjin had brought the 8-limbed devil fiend and roving demon to search for treasures. Over the past few days, Tianjin had sent Huang Xiaolong quite a number of messages. The few of them had even besieged and killed the First Order God Emperor Realm Abyssal species. Don't worry. Just come to the windless forest when the time comes. Wang Xian did not rush them. Skyare Orochi and the rest had followed him. Wang Xian would be the one taking action. With them around, it was just a safeguard. It didn't matter if they came late. Handsome Wang Xian, let's go. We are going to the windless forest. On the 4th day, Yelu Ying's voice was heard from outside. All right. Upon hearing the commotion outside, Wang Xian answered immediately and walked out of the room. Let's go. Master asked me to call you. Yelu Ying said as she led him outside. Soon, 4 figures appeared in front of him. Wang Xian looked over and saw Yelu Ying's master and senior brothers and sisters. However, there was an additional lady. Master. Yelu Ying walked over and called out to the girl with a smile on her face. The lady nodded. Her gaze fell on Wang Xian and her eyes changed. Did you comprehend your understanding of the wind from that holy feather? She looked at Wang Xian and asked with radiance in her eyes. The immortal slaying gourd that Wang Xian demonstrated to her 4 days ago had shaken her. From the condensation and attack of the immortal slaying gourd, she had comprehended it. Now she felt that she had taken a step forward. She had a feeling that she would be able to break through in a few decades, or at least a few years or months. All of this was because of this young man in front of her. Moreover, she felt that if this young man had his current cultivation realm, he would have already broken through to the Emperor God realm. Even so, given enough time, he would be able to break through to the Emperor God realm. This was because he had already broken through the shackles of each level. Now, when facing this young man, she was no longer facing a junior or a weakling. Instead, she was facing an existence on the same level as her. I guess so. Wang Xian looked at her and nodded his head with a smile. Your method has given me a lot of enlightenment. After this, come with me to my divine kingdom. I'll help you quickly increase your strength. The girl pondered for a while before replying. We'll talk about it later. Wang Xian rejected tactfully. You have a powerful background? Hearing his rejection, the woman frowned and asked. They are just ordinary cultivators from ordinary forces. Wang Xian said plainly. Think about it. We'll talk about it after we return from the windless forest. After saying that, the woman did not say anything else. Wang Xian nodded his head with a smile. However, Yelu Ying and the other 3 stared at the scene with their mouths agape. What was going on? Why was his master so polite to a young man? And he wanted to bring him to his own divine kingdom? This was his master's divine kingdom. None of them had been there too many times. What was going on? Has master fallen in love with his daughter? Impossible. They knew their master well. She hadn't had any intimate contact with any man for more than 8 million years. Some gossipy disciples had even gossiped about their master. It was impossible for her to have such thoughts about a young man. The 4 of them looked at each other with doubts in their eyes. Let's go. The woman waved her arm and a palm leaf fan appeared in front of her. Wang Xian flew up and followed her. Since they had the same goal, he could also learn more about the windless forest from them. The palm leaf fan flew rapidly. After more than 10 hours, Wang Xian realized that there were more people around. One by one, the experts led their disciples towards the windless forest. There were also some forces that led a few thousand disciples over. The windless forest was an excellent place for cultivators with wind attributes to train. During the windless days, many experts and forces would bring their disciples over for training and to search for wind jades. Given Yelu Ying's master's speed, it would take a day to travel from Lanyue planet to the windless forest. After a day they arrived at the front of the windless forest. Around them, experts from various forces led their disciples to stand in front of the windless forest. Rustling sounds of leaves colliding could be heard. In the sky, tornadoes and typhoons were wreaking havoc. Wang Xian lifted his head and looked up with curiosity. There were many people around this area. There were at least hundreds of thousands of people. No one entered the windless forest. At this moment, the windless forest was moving even though there was no wind. Tornadoes and the collision of leaves gradually spread into the forest. The windless day has just begun. As the leaves rustle and the hurricanes pass by, the attacking power of the trees will be greatly reduced. When the sounds of the hurricanes and leaves colliding spread throughout the entire windless forest, it means that the windless day has officially begun. The real windless day is only open for a day. However, it can last for 2 days at the periphery. These 2 days are the best time to obtain wind jades. The woman looked ahead and said, "Shall see you will lead them in later." The woman said to the woman who had just arrived, "Yes, master." The woman nodded immediately. "Protect him well." After hesitating for a few seconds, the woman instructed the woman again. "Yes." The woman nodded her head and looked at Wang Xian beside her. Upon hearing her, Wang Xian revealed a smile. He wasn't going to move together with Yelu Ying and the rest. During the windless day, how much wind jades I can get will depend on my luck. This is a chance that comes once in 10,000 years. Whether I can get rich or not depends on this chance. Whether I can break through this time will depend on how much wind jades I can get. Let's go. The attacks from the trees at the periphery have been greatly reduced. Let's head over. Be careful. Don't let others ambush you. Don't be afraid if there are any ambushers. Kill them. At this moment, voices were heard from the surroundings. The disciples were rubbing their palms together. Some experts had also started to instruct their disciples. Now that the attacks from the trees at the periphery had been greatly reduced, some experts didn't move. Their target was the deeper parts of the windless forest. Rumble. Just at this moment, a terrifying aura rushed towards them. An Emperor God expert has appeared. An Emperor God has appeared. Sensing the power, the experts and forces that had arrived looked over. Their pupils constricted and their faces were filled with shock. In the sky, an old man shrouded in green light floated quietly. Chapter 2842, Boss Wang, that's the Wind God Emperor. I didn't expect him to come so early. Every windless day, the Wind God Emperor would rush over. But his target is the windless forest valley, and it has nothing to do with us. The other God Emperors haven't arrived yet. The God Emperor's target is the windless forest valley. Now that the wind hasn't reached the windless forest valley, the God Emperors don't have to wait in advance. Discussions could be heard from the surroundings. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the divine Wind Emperor. Yelu Ying's master also looked at the Wind God Emperor with a solemn expression. A God Emperor would be a top-notch existence anywhere. Let's go. Let's go. The arrival of a God Emperor caused a commotion. But soon, some disciples entered the windless forest. Yelu Ying's master did not give any orders and the group waited quietly. 2 hours later, the various hurricanes in the windless forest had reached the depths. Go in and be careful. The girl said. Yes, master. Yelu Ying and the rest bowed immediately. Follow them and they will protect you, she said looking at Wang Xian. Wang Xian found it funny and laughed. With a swift move, he flew into the windless forest. Wang Xian handsome. Yelu Ying and the rest followed behind, and when they entered the windless forest, she couldn't help but shout. Hey Wang Xian, what's your relationship with our master? Yelu Ying couldn't help but fly to Wang Xian, and asked curiously with her big eyes. A mutual guidance relationship. Wang Xian pondered for a while and said. Guidance? Master has already agreed to take you as a disciple. Why don't you agree? You should know that our master is an expert at the pinnacle of God King, and he might even become an emperor god in the future. Yelu Ying said. She hoped that Wang Xian could become her junior brother, and then she would be his senior sister. Yeah, Wang Xian, this is the first time I've seen master so concerned about someone. Think about it. The fifth senior brother spoke up as well. Wang Xian was stunned and he smiled faintly. The guiding relationship he was talking about wasn't your master guiding me, but me guiding your master. We have already entered the windless forest. Let's be careful and see if we can obtain some wind jades. The woman looked at Wang Xian and spoke to her junior brothers and sisters. It's fourth senior sister. The few of them put away their curious expressions and looked forward. Fourth senior sister stood beside Wang Xian and could assist him at any time. Wang Xian looked at them and smiled. Buzz. The next moment, the unbeginning sacred wings appeared behind him. Wow, such cool wings. Yelu Ying exclaimed in surprise when she saw the unbeginning sacred wings that suddenly appeared on Wang Xian's back. Wang Xian was speechless. His yin-yang five elements dragon eyes stared ahead. It would take at least a dozen hours for the hurricane to reach Windless Forest Valley. Wang Xian did not have much to do during this period of time. Let's go. In order to thank you for your warm hospitality, I'll bring you along. As Wang Xian spoke, rays of green light appeared on the unbeginning saint wings and enveloped them. What's this? You'll bring us along? When Yelu Ying and the rest heard Wang Xian, they were taken aback by the green light that enveloped them. Their master wanted them to protect Wang Xian. What was this? Follow me and you'll know. As Wang Xian spoke, he flew forward. Look, the trees in Windless Forest are not attacking him. That's true. Windless Forest will only reduce the attacking power of the trees, but it won't stop them from attacking. Is that wing? Soon, Yelu Ying and the rest noticed that the surrounding trees did not attack Wang Xian, which surprised them. In Windless Forest, as long as one flew, he would definitely attract wind. Once he attracted the wind, he would be attacked by the trees. However, the surrounding trees did not attack him. Let's go, we'll follow behind. Fourth senior sister's eyes flickered as she followed behind. When she flew over, she realized that she was not attacked by the trees. This made her size up the green energy that enveloped her. We're not attacked either. Wow, this is great. The excited voices of Yelu Ying and the rest came from behind. Wang Xian flew in front with a smile on his face. Although he had only obtained one saint feather, he could still use some of the abilities of the unbeginning saint wings. By enveloping them in it, they would not be attacked by the surrounding trees. However, there was a huge limitation. Currently, Wang Xian's wind attribute strength was only at level 2 Immortal God King. He could only prevent the trees below level 2 Immortal God King from attacking them. Once they entered deeper into the forest, the green light would not be able to protect them. However, this was enough. On Windless Forest, the attacks from the trees would be greatly reduced. This green light could protect them when they entered deeper into the forest. Wang Xian, this wing of yours is amazing. It can even prevent the trees from attacking us. Yelu Ying caught up with Wang Xian and said excitedly, I can only bring you to wander around outside the center. When you enter deeper into the forest, the trees will still attack you. Wang Xian smiled at her. That's enough. Given our strength, we can't enter the center. Wang Xian, you're our lucky star. Yelu Ying said excitedly. Hehe, I'll bring you to look for some wind jade to thank you for your hospitality. Wang Xian chuckled. Let's go. Ha ha ha, without the attacks from the trees, we will definitely be able to get a lot of wind jade. Yelu Ying shouted. The other three were also tempted. The wind jade was a precious treasure for wind attribute cultivators like them. Follow me. Wang Xian increased his speed and headed towards the center. Yelu Ying and the rest followed behind. No wonder Master values him so much. He's really strong. Fourth senior sister thought to herself as she looked at Wang Xian. With such strength, he did not need her protection. There's a wind jade over there. After flying for more than an hour, Wang Xian stopped and pointed to a tree in front of them. It's wind jade. It's at least a level 3 Immortal God King Realm wind jade. Yelu Ying looked over and said passionately. Pluck it. Be careful when you pluck it. You might be attacked by the trees. Wang Xian reminded them. Let me do it. Fifth senior brother also understood that the wind attribute energy around them was only to protect them from the attacks of the trees. But if they touched the trees, they would definitely be attacked. Chapter 2843. Yelu Ying's fifth senior brother had already reached the 6th level Immortal King realm. Under the windless weather, the attacks of the trees were greatly reduced. Got it? With his strength, he easily plucked the wind jade. The attacks from the trees were easily blocked when they landed on his body. Here you go. Fifth senior brother flew over and handed the wind jade to Wang Xian with a smile. You guys can keep it. I don't need it. Its level is too low. Wang Xian shook his head and said, Huh. Fifth senior brother was taken aback. He looked at the unbeginning saint wings on Wang Xian's back and pursed his lips. All right then, we'll accept it. Fifth senior brother said. Wang Xian nodded. Give it to your junior sister. You can use this wind jade. Fifth senior brother said with a smile. Yeah. Yeluing kept it with a smile. She then looked at Wang Xian and asked, Wang Xian, did you get a lot of high-level wind jades with these wings? The last time Master brought you out of the windless forest, was it because you obtained a lot of wind jade in the windless forest? She asked with sparkling eyes. Yeah, so I'm not interested in these low-level ones. Wang Xian nodded with a smile. No wonder. Wang Xian, you're a tycoon. Yeluing exclaimed. Let's go. We can get more wind jades before the others come in. Wang Xian urged. They should be the fastest now. After all, they were not disturbed by the trees. Great. Yeluing and the rest nodded excitedly. The windless forest was very terrifying. Once you entered the windless forest, you would suffer endless attacks. There was no end to this attack. As a first-level immortal king, you could only stay in the area with eternal godlord attacks. Otherwise you would be courting death. Once you entered the windless forest, you would be attacked and the speed of the experts would be greatly reduced. There shouldn't be many people who could reach where Wang Xian was. There's a wind jade over there. There's another one here. With the Yin-Yang 5 elements dragon eyes and Wang Xian's God Emperor level strength, it was a piece of cake to find the wind jade. Yeluing cheered excitedly when she saw more wind jades. But gradually they were also shocked. When Wang Xian led the team, Fengyu was still fine. Perhaps he was just lucky. However, encountering dozens of wind jades in a row was a stroke of luck. This Wang Xian isn't simple. No wonder Master rejected him as a disciple. 3 hours later, the fourth senior sister couldn't help but transmit a message to her junior brothers and sisters. Fifth senior brother and sixth junior sister nodded slightly. To be valued so highly by his master, his ability was indeed not simple. At this moment, Wang Xian exclaimed softly as he looked to the right. What happened? Yelu Ying's eyes lit up as she asked. Our luck is pretty good. Wang Xian said with a smile as he flew to the right. We're going to be rich. Looking at Wang Xian's expression, how could Yeluing not know? She shouted excitedly. They immediately followed behind Wang Xian. This is? Hiss, why are there so many wind jades? When they flew over, Yeluing and her fellow disciples sucked in a breath of cold air, their eyes filled with shock. In front of them there were more than 20 connected trees with wind jades. These wind jades were all 6th Order Immortal King Realm existences. More than 26th Order Immortal King Realm wind jades were extremely precious to them. Even 4th Senior Sister who was a 7th Order Immortal King Realm wind jades were excited. You guys have to be careful. This treasure of mine won't be able to protect you here. If you get any closer you will be attacked by the trees. Moreover, there are more than 20 wind jades here. Their attacks are definitely strong. 5th Order or even 6th Order Immortal King Realm existences can be threatened. Wang Xian stared ahead and said to them after sensing the energy in this area. Don't worry, don't worry. With 4th Senior Sister here, haha, we're going to be rich. Yelu Ying's eyes lit up as she spoke. Wang Xian nodded. With 4th Senior Sister's strength, she could easily get these 20 wind jades. Even if she couldn't, Wang Xian could do it himself and get it with a wave of his hand. I'll help them get these wind jades and leave. Wang Xian thought to himself as he watched. It was about time. After entering the windless forest valley and obtaining Sacred Feather, he would return to the Imperial Star Domain. By then he wouldn't have anything to do with them anymore. Stay here and don't move. 4th Senior Sister instructed from the side. Wang Xian looked over. The 4th Senior Sister's figure moved and she immediately flew forward. Swish, swish, swish. As soon as she flew over, a barrage of attacks flew towards her. She moved and a wind barrier appeared around her. Bam, bam, bam. The attacks landed on her body but failed to break through her defense. However, it did slow her down. It wasn't a big deal. Someone's coming. But at this moment, Wang Xian's heart skipped a beat as he looked behind him. I sense the wind jades. They're here, over here. SSS there. There are more than 20 of them. Aha, we're rich. We're rich. When he sensed the wind jades, a group of people flew over quickly. Their speed was unbelievably fast and the attacks from the surrounding leaves were blocked by the defensive barrier. Someone's coming. Hearing these voices, Yelu Ying and the others' hearts tightened and they quickly looked over. Swish. At this moment, more than 20 middle-aged men and women were standing on an aircraft. At this moment, their eyes were burning with passion. Someone's coming. The group of people on the aircraft also noticed Wang Xian and the rest, especially 4th Senior Sister, who was plucking a wind jade with her arm. She quickly plucked the first wind jade and immediately moved on to the second one. Stop it. Seeing a large number of wind jades in front of them, the group on the aircraft was burning with passion without any hesitation. Boom. The middle-aged man leading the group attacked fourth senior sister directly. Her? Sensing the attack from behind, fourth senior sister changed her expression and quickly retreated to the side. Who are you guys? We discovered this place first. Fifth senior brother and the rest were shocked when they saw the attack. A fan appeared in their hands as they stared at them coldly. These wind jades belong to us. The fourth senior sister landed in front of them and said with a cold gaze. They belong to us now. More than 20 middle-aged men swept their eyes across Wang Xian and the rest. Sensing the might of fourth senior sister, they curved their lips slightly. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The aura on their bodies moved and a powerful aura rushed in this direction. Chapter 2844, Boss Wang next. Boom, boom. Powerful auras could be felt from the group. The strongest was a 7th Order Immortal King, while the weakest was a 5th Order Immortal King. However, there were 4 7th Order Immortal King Realm experts among them. This caused Yelu Ying and the others to turn pale, their eyes filled with anger. Are you guys going to rob us? Fourth senior sister stared at them with a solemn expression. Hehe, it's not right to rob us. This wind jade is ownerless. It belongs to whoever gets it. So, please leave this place to avoid harming our relationship. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. Fourth senior sister and the rest were stunned. The other party was stronger than them. They were definitely going to take them down. Disappear from our sight in 10 seconds. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. A middle-aged man next to him was holding 2 round balls in his hands. He tossed them up and warned in a faint voice. You guys, don't go overboard. Yelu Ying roared angrily when she saw how domineering they were. They're wearing the clothes of 8 desolations. They're from 8 desolations. Sixth senior sister said in a low voice. She had an ugly expression on her face. The other party was from 8 desolations. Even if they introduced themselves, they wouldn't be afraid. Fourth senior sister also noticed this problem. Her face was filled with unwillingness. Fine. The other party was clearly stronger than them. They couldn't do anything about it. Hehe, if you know what's good for you, put down the wind jade in your hands and leave. The middle-aged man chuckled. Huh. When fourth senior sister heard their words, her expression changed slightly and a cold look appeared in her eyes. What did you say? She gritted her teeth and asked. I said put down the wind jade in your hands. Otherwise we can only send you back to your god country. I wonder where your god country is. I wonder if you can make it back in time. It'll be bad if you miss the windless day. The middle-aged man in the lead said in a friendly manner, but he also looked as if he had the upper hand. They didn't just want the wind jade in front of them. They even wanted the one that fourth senior sister had. They wanted all of them. You guys are robbing us. Do you think we're easy to bully? Yelu Ying pointed at them angrily. Haha, I'll still give you 10 seconds to consider. The middle-aged man who spoke just now laughed again. Ka. At this moment, even the 5th senior brother and the 6th senior sister were filled with anger and clenched their fists. They could give up on the wind jade that they hadn't obtained, but now they actually wanted to snatch the wind jade that 4th senior sister had obtained. Preposterous. In front of them, the disciples of Ba Huang raised their heads slightly and crossed their arms, staring at them mockingly. Wang Xian, who was watching from the side, shook his head slightly. This is really courting death. I really didn't expect this. It's really fate. The group of disciples from 8 Desolation was nothing to Wang Xian. Just as he was about to strike, his expression froze and he stopped. He looked to the left and a smile slowly appeared on his face. Heaven heart, it's right ahead. I can sense it. Like I said, with me, Invincible Battle, I can guarantee to get you a large amount of wind jade for you to cultivate. Hee. A voice that made men unhappy was heard. However, this voice made Wang Xian feel extremely cordial. Brother Invincible, you're really something. Your water mirror art is really impressive. Yeah, Brother Invincible, it's all thanks to you this time. Following which, bootlicking voices were heard. Someone has already occupied that place. At this moment, another pleasant-sounding voice was heard. Occupied that place? Ah, the wind jade there is fated with me. So what if someone else occupies it? The slightly arrogant voice continued. Suddenly, a group of people appeared. They frowned slightly when they heard the voices. It was especially so for the disciples of 8 Desolation. When they heard a name, their expressions changed slightly. Yeluing and the rest immediately looked to the left. Hey, there are quite a lot of people. Everyone, this treasure is fated with me. Hurry up and leave. A group of people appeared in their line of sight. A young man who looked like he was the number one in the world, looked over, raised his head slightly and spoke arrogantly. Beside him, there were over a dozen middle-aged men and a few young men. Beside him was a lady. The lady had outstanding looks and a sweet and lovely face. This treasure is fated with me. Hurry up and leave. When Wang Xian heard this, his face darkened. This guy hasn't changed a bit after so many years. This guy seems to be the famous Invincible Battle Law from 8 Desolation and 6 Directions. Fifth senior brother stared at Invincible Battle Law and frowned slightly. He hadn't been here for long, but he knew that Invincible Battle Law was mainly because he was too high profile. But he also had the right to be high profile. His master was a celestial emperor. He was said to be extremely talented as well. At such a young age, he already had the fighting strength of a 7th-level Undying God King. It was said that he was invincible among his peers. Invincible Battle Law. We, 8 Desolation, discovered this place first. The middle-aged man who led the group of people from 8 Desolation frowned and said coldly to Invincible Battle Law. You guys discovered it first? I've already said that this treasure is fated with me. What's the use of you guys discovering it first? Invincible Battle Law swept a glance at the group of people from 8 Desolation and didn't put them in his eyes. TSK, over 20 wind jades and all of them are 6th level Undying God King. Tianxin, these wind jades are enough for you to cultivate for a period of time. Invincible Battle Law ignored everyone as he looked at wind jades and smiled at the lady beside him. Isn't this a little inappropriate? The lady at the side looked around and asked him. What's inappropriate about it? I've already said that this wind jades is fated with us. This treasure belongs to us. Invincible Battle Law said shamelessly. Invincible Battle Law, are you looking down on us? The group of people from 8 Desolation were infuriated when they saw Invincible Battle Law flirting with a girl in front of them. I'm indeed looking down on you guys. What? Do you want to compete with me? With just 4 7th-level Undying God King experts? With just a few of you? Invincible Battle Law lifted his head slightly and said with disdain. You. Everyone's face changed as they stared at Invincible Battle Law. Invincible Battle Law was the last disciple of a celestial emperor. Even if they were at the same level, they wouldn't be a match for him. Even if all of them attacked together, they wouldn't be able to match up to his trump card. End of chapter. Chapter 2845. Everyone was shocked. Invincible, we are disciples of 8 Desolation. How dare you rob us so brazenly? Are you looking down on us? The disciples of 8 Desolation stared at Invincible with bitter expressions. As disciples of 8 Desolation, they were not afraid of Invincible. Even if Invincible was the last disciple of a God Emperor, they had more than a dozen God Emperors. Most importantly, even though they had the advantage in numbers, Invincible Battle Law was a 7th-order Undying God King realm expert. They were 100% sure that if they were to clash with Invincible Battle Law, they would definitely lose. Invincible was the last disciple of a God Emperor. Would the God Emperor not give him a life-saving treasure? Just one of his treasures would be enough to kill an 8th-order God King realm or even a peak God King realm expert. After all, the Water God Emperor was famous for doting on his last disciple. What do you mean by robbing you? These wind jades are ownerless and are fated with me. Now that I am taking them away, are you trying to use 8 Desolation to pressure me? TSK, do you think the 8 Desolation God Emperors are as shameless as you? Invincible's gaze swept past them as he mocked them. You. Hearing Invincible's words, the faces of the 8 Desolation disciples darkened. They could not afford to offend Invincible for the sake of 20 wind jades. These treasures are fated with us. All of you step down. Invincible waved his hand in a flirtatious manner. Brother Long, let's go. Beside Invincible is the daughter of the Yao Wind God Emperor. A middle-aged man among the 8 Desolation disciples said softly. Oh? The middle-aged man looked over and his face changed when he saw the sweet young lady beside Invincible. Since these wind jades are fated with young Master Invincible and young Lady Tianxin, we shall not fight with the two of you. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and clasped his fists. Since they could not get the wind jades, there was no need to offend the last disciple of a God Emperor. Sensible. Invincible smiled and said indifferently, disperse. Farewell. The disciples turned and left with a solemn expression. Chem? Why aren't you leaving yet? Didn't you hear what our big brother Woody said? After Ba Huang and the rest left, a young man behind Jean Fa Woody frowned and shouted when he saw Wang Xian, Yeluing and the rest still standing there. Invincible Battle Law also raised his eyebrows as he glanced over. But suddenly, his expression froze for a moment. Get lost. The young man, who was obviously a lackey, said coldly. Will? You're doing pretty well, Chinibu. When fourth senior sister saw the people from 8 Desolations leaving, she knew that the Wind Jade wasn't something they could get their hands on. Before she could finish her sentence, Wang Xian's voice was heard from the side. At this moment, Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and looked at Invincible, who was in a daze. Boss Wang. Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, Invincible Fighter shivered a little and reacted. His eyes beamed with excitement. Boss Wang, you really missed me to death. Boo-hoo, Boss Wang, do you know that my longing for you is like a torrential river? In the next moment, to the astonishment of the crowd, Invincible Fighter pounced on the young man who spoke. Seeing the personal disciple of the Emperor God, a demon-like talent, Invincible Fighter, who even the disciples of 8 Desolations didn't dare to provoke, pouncing on Wang Xian and uttering such exaggerated words, Yelu Ing and the rest were shocked. They looked at the scene in front of them in shock. What's going on? This Invincible Fighter with a strong background knows Wang Xian? Bam. At this moment, they saw Invincible Fighter pouncing on Wang Xian and hugging his thigh. Wow, Boss Wang, it's been 10 years, almost 10 years. We finally meet again. Exaggerated sounds and exaggerated movements. This made Yeluing and the rest gape. The personal disciple of the Emperor God, this demon-like talent, Invincible Fighter, is so indecent? Wang Xian is his boss? Chinibu, you haven't changed at all. Looking at Invincible Fighter's shameless behavior, Wang Xian said with a smile. I'm just excited to see you, boss. Invincible Fighter said excitedly as he stood up and hugged Wang Xian. Alright. Wang Xian reached out to stop him from hugging. Who's that young man? What's going on? Brother Invincible. How did he? Behind them, the group of young and middle-aged men were dumbfounded. They knew Invincible Fighter better than anyone. He was a little unrestrained, arrogant, and narcissistic. He referred to himself as a peerless genius. He even wrote on his personal page, if the heavens didn't give birth to me, Invincible Fighter, the 8 Desolations and 6 Harmonies will be like a long night. They had never seen Invincible Fighter concede to anyone. They had even seen Invincible Battle Mage say in front of his own master that it wouldn't be long before Invincible Battle Mage surpassed him. One could imagine how arrogant he was to say such words and look down on others. However, Invincible Fighter did have what it took. A demon-like talent. But now he was hugging the thigh of a young man and calling him Boss Wang? Who is this young man? Someone who could convince Invincible Fighter? What kind of existence is he? Why did you come to Desolation 6 Directions? Wang Xian patted Invincible Fighter's shoulder and asked with a smile. Sai Boss Wang, it's a long story. You should know that my dazzling talent has attracted the attention of the Imperial Court. Later on, I was taken in as a disciple by a peaked divine king expert of the Imperial Court. Yeah, that's my second master. This master of mine brought me to the 8 Desolations and 6 Harmonies. In the end, he died a few days after arriving here. However, who am I, Invincible Fighter, the brightest star in the darkness? My current master has appeared and taken me in as his last disciple. My current master is an Emperor God-level expert. Invincible Fighter said proudly. What a surprise. Wang Xian smiled in astonishment. Fortunately, his master from the Imperial Court had brought him here. Otherwise, things would be difficult. Boss Wang, why did you come to the 8 Desolations and 6 Harmonies? Could it be that this is fate? Invincible Fighter asked happily. Fate. Wang Xian smiled and nodded. He looked to the shocked fourth senior sister and said, Go and keep the Wind Jade. Oh, Invincible, we found this Wind Jade, so I asked them to keep it. He said plainly to Invincible Fighter. No problem. This treasure is naturally fated with you, Boss Wang. Invincible Fighter said without any objection. Yeluing and the rest widened their eyes. Even fourth senior sister was shocked. Chapter 2846. The Second Sacred Feather in the Windless Forest. Everyone was shocked to see Wang Xian and Invincible. Yeluing and the rest were not the only ones who were shocked. Even those who came with Invincible were shocked. 20-odd 6th level Immortal King God King Wind Jades were nothing to Invincible. But these Wind Jades were a gift for Invincible to please Heaven Heart. Under normal circumstances, Invincible would not give up these wind jades so easily. After all, Invincible was a narcissistic person. But now, Invincible agreed without hesitation. He addressed him as boss. Was this still the Invincible they knew? This Invincible, you are giving up these wind jades to them? A few middle-aged men from Heavens will said unhappily when they saw Invincible giving up wind jade to Heaven's will. Although they were in awe of Invincible's strength and background, they were also jealous of him. Especially when Jean Fa Woody wanted to chase after their cousin, this made them feel a little unhappy. Come Tianxing. Let me introduce you. I, Invincible, will never bow down to anyone except Boss Wang. My boss is Invincible. Invincible ignored the few middle-aged men and spoke to the lady in the middle. Brother Wang, nice to meet you. Tianxing sized Wang Xian up with curiosity. She was well aware of Invincible. She was also curious about a person who could make Invincible address him as boss. Nice to meet you. Wang Xian looked at the girl and Invincible, who was standing at the side. He smiled and nodded his head. Heaven Heart, let me tell you. When Boss Wang and I teamed up, we were invincible. My God King War Pet was captured by Boss Wang. Invincible said to Heaven Heart in an exaggerated manner. So Brother Wang is a beast-taming grandmaster. Heaven Heart was taken aback as he exclaimed. You can say so. Wang Xian nodded plainly. Boss Wang is being humble. The number one beast tamer in the universe is definitely him. In the future, the universe will definitely be Boss Wang and I will be second. Invincible chuckled as he stared at Wang Xian with glowing eyes. Boss Wang, since we've met again, let's get back to business. I know where to find wild beasts. You just have to tame a rank 7 or 8 Undying God King battle pet for me. I don't have time right now. I still have some things to deal with. Let's talk about it when I have time. As he spoke, he patted Invincible Fighter on the shoulder. All right. Invincible smiled and nodded. I still have some things to deal with. I'll come find you when I'm done. Wang Xian looked into the depths of the windless forest and realized that it was almost time. Do you have something to deal with? Boss Wang, can I be of any help? Invincible said. I can't. Wang Xian shook his head and looked at Yeluing and the rest. I have something to settle. Let's part ways here. Wang Xian, you, be careful, brother Wang Xian. Yeluing wanted to ask some questions, but the fifth senior brother interrupted her and cupped his fist at Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded and patted Invincible Fighter on the shoulder. See you in a few days. As soon as he finished his sentence, he flew towards the depths of the windless forest. Boss Wang, please leave your contact details. Invincible Fighter shouted from behind, but Wang Xian ignored him. Boss Wang is really a busy man. It's been 8 to 9 years since we last met. Invincible Battle Law sighed as he spoke. Invincible, is this Boss Wang really that powerful? Tianxing asked curiously from the side. Of course. He's my boss, Invincible Fighter. Invincible Fighter nodded his head heavily. Hey, how do you guys know Boss Wang? He looked at Yeluing and the rest and asked curiously. Yeluing and the rest were taken aback for a moment before revealing some things. In that case, that young man isn't that strong? A middle-aged man behind Tianxing raised an eyebrow when he heard Yeluing and the rest. Brother Wang is very mysterious. The fifth senior brother said as he looked at the middle-aged man. Their master had said that he was a 6th-level immortal king, but they had never seen it. However, they knew that Wang Xian wasn't as simple as he seemed from how he led them to so many wind jades. The middle-aged men twitched their lips in disdain when they heard the fifth senior brother. Let's split the wind jades in half. The fourth senior sister walked over and said to Invincible Fighter, Tianxing and the rest. No need. I've already told Boss Wang that it's all for you. However, her words were rejected by Invincible Fighter immediately. Tianxing, let's go. I'll bring you to look for more wind jades. Wang Xian had not seen Invincible Fighter for 8 to 9 years. He had wanted to have a good reunion with him, but they had bumped into each other here. Windless Forest only came once in 10,000 years. Wang Xian couldn't miss this opportunity. After separating from Invincible Fighter, Yeluing and the rest, Wang Xian flew towards the Windless Forest Valley. He was fast and soon arrived at the front of the Windless Forest Valley. Looking ahead, the hurricane had already entered the Windless Forest Valley. It wouldn't be long before the attack power of the trees in the Windless Forest Valley would be greatly reduced. Let's go in and investigate. As Wang Xian spoke, he moved and entered the Windless Forest Valley. As the trees in the Windless Forest Valley had not reduced their attack power, the group of God Emperors had not arrived and were waiting. Wang Xian was the first to enter the Windless Forest Valley. Relying on the unbeginning saint wings, he wouldn't be attacked as long as he didn't touch the trees. After passing through the valley, Wang Xian soon arrived at the place where he was previously. His yin-yang 5 elements dragon eyes scanned the surroundings. He moved and flew towards the depths of the windless forest valley. At the entrance, all the wind jades had been collected by him, except for one sacred feather. After obtaining that sacred feather, Wang Xian could clearly sense that there was still a sacred feather inside. This feeling was unusually strong. He flew towards the interior quickly. The entire windless forest valley wasn't huge, but it would take Wang Xian a few hours to travel across. After flying for a short while, Wang Xian saw wind jades on the surrounding trees. Among them were wind jades in the form of birds. Tiske, as long as the trees here fall under the attack, these treasures will be mine. Wang Xian scanned the wind jades with a burning passion. He didn't stay any longer and flew forward immediately. He could sense that there was a holy feather in front of him. The second one. Soon Wang Xian revealed a faint smile. He stared at the sacred feather at the root of a tree and smiled. Chapter 2847. Get all of them on top, the second feather. According to the information from the unbeginning sacred wings, there are a total of 49 feathers. Wang Xian murmured. 47 more to go. His body moved and he continued to fly forward. The third. The fourth. The fifth. Wang Xian's eyes lit up as he ventured deeper. Other than the feathers, there was a large amount of wind jade. Wang Xian had found more than 20 bird-shaped wind jades. These bird-shaped wind jades were comparable to First-Order God Emperor realm treasures. To wind-attributed cultivators, it was a huge treasure. The wind divine dragons can absorb these wind jades directly. Wang Xian murmured, his eyes shining. All these wind jades could help the 9 wind divine dragons break through to the God Emperor realm. The wind divine dragons were the 9 flood dragons. These 9 flood dragons had been cultivating in seclusion in the Dragon Palace and had not participated in the Dragon Palace's battles for a long time. In the past, the 9 flood dragons were used to pull the dragon throne. Now they were rarely used. The main reason was that they had evolved from flood dragons to true divine dragons, wind divine dragons. In this resplendent starry sky, there was detailed information about the divine dragon tribe. Once the wind divine dragon appeared, it would be recognized. What would happen if a weak divine dragon appeared in the resplendent starry sky? They would be captured by God Emperor experts, and some God Emperor experts might even want to obtain the divine dragon bloodline. Therefore, Wang Xian had not allowed the 9 wind divine dragons to participate in the Dragon Palace's battles. But if all 9 wind divine dragons had the battle strength of a First-Order God Emperor, or even a Second-Order God Emperor, then there was nothing to worry about. At that time, the 9 wind divine dragons could appear directly. If I can get my hands on a few dozen wind jades, the wind divine dragons can definitely increase their battle strength to the God Emperor realm. Wang Xian smiled and continued to fly forward. He found sacred feather after sacred feather. In just half an hour, Wang Xian had already found 23. I can't continue searching. At this moment, Wang Xian paused for a moment and looked behind him. He squinted his eyes and felt a terrifying aura. Some God Emperor had arrived. Moreover, the attack power of the trees at the entrance had decreased. His body moved and he quickly returned to where he came from. Wang Xian's greatest advantage here was that the surrounding trees would not attack him. As for the others, even God Emperor experts would be attacked by the trees. Even if there was no wind, the attack power of the trees would be greatly reduced, but the countless trees could still cause great trouble for them. Otherwise, the wind jades here would have long been obtained by experts. Boom boom boom. So. Humph, these trees are really annoying. Even when there's no wind, they still have the offensive power of an undying God King. When Wang Xian flew out, the sounds of battle and cold snorts could be heard. Wang Xian squinted his eyes. The attacks of the trees at the entrance had already been reduced to the undying God King stage, but even a God Emperor would have to take them seriously. After all, this was equivalent to several thousand Ninth Order Immortal King realm experts attacking at the same time. Wang Xian sped up and arrived at the front. It's time to harvest. His eyes were filled with excitement as he flew directly towards a tree. There was a wind jade on it. With a wave of his hand, he took the wind jade away. So. In the next instant, the tree launched an attack and countless leaves flew towards Wang Xian. However, Wang Xian only touched this tree and the other trees did not attack him. This was equivalent to a Ninth Order God King realm expert attacking Wang Xian. It's just an itch. He moved and flew forward. his eyes locked onto the wind jades on the trees, and he quickly took them away. The second sacred feather. Very quickly Wang Xian arrived at the location of the second sacred feather, and with a wave of his hand he easily took it away. The tree's attack came instantly and a terrifying aura swept over. Wang Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. This attack had reached the First Order God Emperor realm. However, it was considered weak among the First Order God Emperors. Boom. Wang Xian took the attack head-on, and his body flew back a few thousand meters. He stabilized himself and continued flying forward with a calm expression. Wind Jades, Peak Immortal King Realm, and First Order God Emperor Realm experts were easily taken away by him. And the sacred feather after sacred feather was quickly collected by him. Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement. This time his harvest was huge. With so many treasures, the Dragon Palace would be able to improve significantly. At least 9 Wind Divine Dragons could increase their battle prowess to the First Order God Emperor Realm, or even more. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he harvested the sacred feather like crazy. What's going on? Why can't I see any wind jades in the Windless Forest Valley? At the same time, at the entrance of the Windless Forest Valley, experts exuding a terrifying aura scanned their surroundings with bitter expressions. There were more than a dozen majestic figures, and their bodies were shrouded in a brilliant light. Branches and leaves fell around them, but they were blocked by a powerful defense. The dozen figures frowned slightly, and their expressions were slightly ugly as they scanned their surroundings. Within the Windless Forest Valley, during other times, First Order God Emperor Realm experts and even Second Order God Emperor Realm experts would not dare to enter. Only on windless days would they step into this place. To these God Emperors, windless days were the best time for them to obtain powerful wind jades. If they were lucky, they would be able to obtain a fortune even for a God Emperor. But now they did not see any wind jades. This made them extremely puzzled. Logically speaking, since no one had entered the Windless Forest Valley for 10,000 years, there would definitely be a lot of wind jades. The attack power of the trees here has just decreased, and we are the first batch of people to enter. Could it be that an expert came here before the windless day? Some of the experts revealed an expression of shock, and their expressions turned slightly ugly. A windless day was a day for them to harvest. Now that there was no wind jades, they were unhappy. Let's continue to take a look. The eyes of the God Emperors flickered, and they continued deeper into the Windless Forest Valley. However, the closer they got to the inner part of the Windless Forest Valley, the denser the trees and the stronger the attack power. As a result, their speed became slower and slower. However, after advancing for more than 10 minutes, they still did not see any wind jades. This caused their expressions to turn uglier. What exactly was going on this windless day? What happened in the Windless Forest? The group of God Emperors was slightly unwilling, but they could only brace themselves and continue forward. Every windless day, even though they could not reach the deepest part of the Windless Forest Valley, they could still advance several billion kilometers. What the God Emperors did not know was that several billion kilometers in front of them, there was a person harvesting wind jades and holy feathers in a frenzy. Chapter 2848. The attacking power of the trees is getting stronger. Within the Windless Forest Valley, Wang Xian's expression turned serious after obtaining a sacred feather. He had already entered the depths of the Windless Forest Valley. After flying for 2 days, he could already see the end of the Windless Forest Valley. At the end of the valley, there was a towering mountain with densely packed trees. However, when Wang Xian obtained the 26th sacred feather, the attacking power of the trees had already made it difficult for Wang Xian to deal with them. 26, including the one I have already obtained, a total of 27. I'm still short of 22. But this Windless Forest Valley seems to be reaching the end. I can still find sacred feather inside, but there should be less than 22. Could it be that there are still sacred feather missing? Wang Xian's expression was a little ugly. The Windless Forest Valley was reaching its end, and he was still short of 22 sacred feather. If there were not enough sacred feather here, it would be troublesome. Where could he find a single feather in the vast sea of stars? Let's continue deeper. Wang Xian frowned as he continued flying forward. After flying for a few minutes, Wang Xian did not find a single wind jade or sacred feather. This made his expression even uglier. He was about to reach the end. Almost there. In less than a minute, the end of the mountain was right in front of him. On the unbeginning Saint Wings, Wang Xian could sense the presence of sacred feather. However, even with one sacred feather, he was still short of 21. Suddenly, when Wang Xian swept his gaze across the surroundings, he froze completely. He looked in front of him with astonishment and shock written all over his face. At the end of the windless forest valley, there was an incomparably huge tree. This tree was 10 times the size of the surrounding trees. The branches were abnormally long and densely packed with leaves. However, in the middle of this tree there was a wind jade. This wind jade was bird-shaped, but it was several times the size of a First-Order God Emperor Realm wind jade, about half a meter long. However, this was not what shocked Wang Xian. What shocked him was the sacred feather on the wings of this bird. Not just one sacred feather, but a total of 22. In other words, all the sacred feather of the unbeginning saint wings were here. Unexpected, haha, really unexpected, all the sacred feather are here. Wang Xian's eyes were burning with excitement. He originally thought that there would be a shortage of sacred feather, but he did not expect the remaining sacred feather to all be here. It was a pleasant surprise. But soon, his expression turned solemn. The last tree in the windless forest valley was the largest tree. It was 10 times the size of the other trees. This also meant that the tree's attack was exceptionally terrifying. Wang Xian stared at the tree and his expression kept changing. I have to obtain sacred feather. Even if my body collapses or dies, I have to obtain it. The moment I obtain sacred feather, I'll put sacred feather and that wind jade into the dragon palace. Wang Xian gritted his teeth with determination in his eyes. He was determined to obtain sacred feather. If he could not obtain these sacred feathers during the windless days, he might have to raise his combat power to the 3rd or 4th stage Void God Emperor realm before he could obtain these sacred feathers. Let's give it a shot. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings. In the next moment, his body gradually transformed. A 2-meter-long rainbow divine dragon appeared. Strangely, the rainbow divine dragon had a pair of bone wings on its back. Wang Xian, who had transformed into a divine dragon, squinted his eyes. An earthy yellow energy surrounded his body. He took a deep breath. I'll be lucky if I don't die. Wang Xian gripped his dragon claws tightly as he approached. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The moment Wang Xian gripped the avian wind jade with his dragon claws, the entire avian wind jade's pupils emitted a green radiance. A sharp sound came from its mouth. The avian wind jade seemed to be alive. A terrifying aura came from the avian wind jade. At this moment, Wang Xian's face turned pale. Its cold eyes stared at Wang Xian and its wings trembled slightly. It's psychic. Wang Xian's face was filled with cold sweat. His eyes revealed a tinge of fear. How strong would the fusion of a 2nd stage Void God Emperor Wind Jade and 22 Sacred Feather be? Killing Wang Xian would be a piece of cake. Voila! The avian Wind Jade's wings trembled slightly as though something terrifying was about to befall. Just as Wang Xian was prepared to escape, the unbeginning saint wings on his back suddenly trembled. A surge of energy enveloped the avian Wind Jade. The sacred feather on it trembled slightly. Chirp chirp. A mournful cry came from the avian Wind Jade. Kaka. A glimmer of hope flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. He grabbed the avian Wind Jade with his dragon claws and peeled it off the tree. In the next moment, he kept the avian Wind Jade. Got it? An excited look appeared on his face. Got it all. All 49 sacred feather were in his hands, along with a large amount of wind jade. Ah! Wang Xian couldn't help but burst into laughter. Swish swish swish. However, it might be that extreme joy begets sorrow. When he touched the avian wind jade, the huge tree had yet to attack him. When he put away the bird wind jade, the trees moved. It was 10 times bigger than the other trees. There were millions of leaves on it. Moreover, the branches were emitting a green radiance. They looked like horrifying wind whips. The wind whips and millions of leaves attacked Wang Xian instantly. Shit. Wang Xian felt the horrifying attack and his expression changed. Layers of thick and heavy earth elemental laws of defense appeared in front of him. Bam bam bam. However, the earth elemental laws of defense didn't even last for 0.001 seconds before it collapsed. A series of attacks landed on Wang Xian. Damn. Wang Xian was horrified. He felt that he would be destroyed by the leaves and branches in the next moment. There was no way he could survive. With a sudden thought, he covered his vital parts with the unbeginning sacred wings. Head and heart. When the unbeginning sacred wings covered his head and heart, he realized that the other parts of his body had disappeared. Yes, they had all disappeared. They were obliterated by the horrifying attack. However, Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement at this moment. The unbeginning sacred wings could withstand the attacks of the leaves and branches. Only his head and heart were left. That was enough. Even if he could recover, it wouldn't take long. His eyes lit up and he fled outside rapidly. With a slight movement of his head, he transformed into his human form. The dissipated body was restored by his dragon energy. Swish, swish, swish. However, Wang Xian didn't expect the tree behind him to launch a second round of attacks. With the unbeginning sacred wings, he wouldn't be attacked again as long as he dodged the first round of attacks. However, he didn't expect the tree to launch a second round of attacks. This time the attack was a little familiar. The branches and leaves formed into the shape of a fan and attacked him directly. Chapter 2849. Is this a robbery? Rumble, rumble, rumble. The humongous fan carried the horrifying power of the law of wind. When the fan was fanned towards him, a mighty typhoon formed in front of the fan. The horrifying attack shocked Wang Xian. He protected his vital parts with the unbeginning sacred wings. Boom. Waves of horrifying wind energy rushed towards him. His arms and legs were easily blown away like dandelions by the wind energy attack, disappearing without a trace. Only the parts protected by the unbeginning sacred wings were not destroyed. The horrifying power of the typhoon sent his body flying into the distance again. This time the flying was even more ferocious, even more tragic. Wang Xian felt himself whistling in the air. The speed at which he was being fanned was twice as fast as when he was flying at full speed. He bumped into other trees along the way and they didn't even have time to react. What kind of concept was this? His head began to crack. Wang Xian mobilized his energy to protect his head and heart. Wang Xian's face was unusually pale as he recovered and cracked again and again. Damn it. It's been 2 days. I haven't seen a single wind jade in 2 days. What's going on in the windless forest? At the same time, in the depths of the windless forest, an old man shrouded in the law of wind scanned his surroundings with a bitter look. It had been more than 2 days. He had been in the windless forest for more than 2 days and he hadn't seen a single wind jade. There was only one treasure in the windless forest, wind jade. However, he hadn't gotten a single one. Some of the emperor gods who had entered had already returned. He was indignant. He continued to venture deeper after consuming a huge amount of energy. However, the outcome was the same as the entrance. There wasn't even a feather on the wind jade. This made him slightly annoyed in his heart. The windless forest only lasted for 3 days. Time is almost up. Damn it. He couldn't help but curse and was ready to return. Boom. However, at this moment something seemed to fly out from the depths. He was taken aback and quickly looked over. Is that a human? What a horrifying speed. No, he's been attacked and he's severely injured. He lifted his head and could only see a blurry figure. Seeing the figure disappear, he looked towards the depths of the windless forest. How did he come out from the depths of windless forest valley? What's going on? All the wind jades have disappeared. Is it related to this figure? His expression changed slightly as he looked in the direction where the person had disappeared. Gritting his teeth, he moved and chased in that direction. However, with the interference of the trees, his speed was very slow. Bam bam bam. Under the attack of the tree at the end of the windless forest valley, Wang Xian once again experienced the feeling of being thrown backward. This time it was even more terrifying than the last. The powerful impact caused his body to quickly crumble, and the attack sent him flying hundreds of millions of miles away. Along the way, his body crashed into the huge mountain peak and directly smashed through it. One could imagine how terrifying that attack was. Boom. Somewhere in the windless forest, Wang Xian's body landed heavily on the ground, forming a humongous pit. Cough cough. Wang Xian, who was lying in the huge pit, coughed out blood and looked extremely pale. This time the injury was more than 10 times worse than the last time. However, as long as he kept his life, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to recover. Looking around, he revealed a speechless expression. This attack had sent him flying across half of the windless forest. Unlike the previous time, he didn't encounter any beauties this time. At this time, Wang Xian sensed the communication stone plate in the nest vibrating. He took it out and revealed a smile. Sky Array Orochi and the rest were rushing over. Let's recuperate here. Wang Xian hesitated and thought to himself. After recuperating, he would look for Zhan Fa Wudi to catch up before returning to the Dragon Palace. With a swift move, he flew to a spot not far from the huge pit and sat cross-legged to recuperate. This time his injuries were indeed severe. His body had been destroyed hundreds of times. If it wasn't for his divine dragon body and strong dragon energy, he might have died. However, it was all worth it. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Wang Xian absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy to rapidly recuperate from his injuries. The loud sound came from this direction. Let's go and take a look. Could it be that some treasure has been unearthed? Treasure? How dare you think? Other than wind jades, what other treasures are there in the windless forest? We're really unlucky this time. We didn't get many wind jades. Damn it. However, not long after Wang Xian sat cross-legged to recuperate, voices were heard. On the right, more than 20 figures were flying over. As they flew, they chatted with each other. They didn't look too good. Other than encountering more than 20 wind jades in the beginning, they didn't have such good luck ever again. They didn't even get any wind jades, which infuriated them. After 2 consecutive days without any harvest, they were even more irritable. When they heard the loud sound, they rushed over immediately. There's a huge pit over there. There's no treasure in it. More than 20 people flew over and frowned as they scanned the area. Look, Brother Long. There's someone there. At this time, a middle-aged man pointed to Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Everyone looked over and saw a pale-faced young man covered in blood sitting there cross-legged. The young man looked extremely weak. It's him, Brother Long. He's one of the people we met at the beginning. Suddenly, a young man stared at Wang Xian and exclaimed, "Seems like it." Brother Long, who was the leader, raised his eyebrows as he sized Wang Xian up. He had some impression of the young man in front of him. When they met more than 20 wind jades, there were already 5 of them there. This young man was one of them. At this time, Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged, also sensed the arrival of people. He opened his eyes slightly and looked around. He recognized the group of disciples from 8 Desolates. He took out an elixir pill and placed it in his mouth. Then he closed his eyes and ignored them. This guy seems to be seriously injured. Seeing Wang Xian open his eyes and close them again, one of the middle-aged men commented, "Brother Long, did you notice that the elixir pill he took just now seemed to be of a very high level?" Suddenly, a skinny middle-aged man on the left had a passionate look in his eyes. What? Brother Long and the rest looked at the skinny middle-aged man with doubts. The skinny middle-aged man didn't say a word. He stared at the figure in front of him and couldn't help but lick his lips. In the next moment, he moved and took out an imprisonment ring and locked it on Wang Xian. Chapter 2850. Trouble arises, that brat Tan Lang. Seeing the skinny middle-aged man charging towards the young man, the disciples from 8 Desolation frowned and shook their heads. However, they did not stop him. Tan Lang was the name of the middle-aged man. As for whether that was his real name, they had no idea. Tan Lang was an alchemist guru and knew a lot about elixir pills. At the same time, they knew that Tan Lang was famous for his greed. Once he encountered a treasure, he would not give it up as long as there was a chance to get it. Seeing Tan Lang taking out the confinement circle and charging towards the young man, coupled with what Tan Lang had said just now, they knew that the elixir pill that the young man had consumed was not simple. Tan Lang wanted to strike. The disciples from 8 Desolation looked on emotionlessly with smiles on their faces. At this moment, Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes slowly. He saw a confinement circle coming towards him. He looked at the middle-aged man in front of him, who was filled with greed. There was no fluctuation in his eyes. The confinement circle arrived above his head and locked him in place. Seeing the confinement circle locking him in place, the skinny middle-aged man was filled with excitement and greed. Bam! Wang Xian's eyes were cold as the confinement circle above his head collapsed. Rumble. In the next moment, Tan Lang's eyes widened and were filled with horror. His face was filled with horror as he stared at his own body. He discovered that his body was actually slowly splitting apart. His body was rapidly dissipating. Great horror befell him as the threat of death made him tremble violently. His eyes were filled with horror and despair as he stared at Wang Xian in front of him. What? The disciples from 8 Desolation who were watching the show from behind, were shocked when they saw Tan Lang's body collapsing and dissipating rapidly. Oh no, that young man is very strong. Brother Long, who was the leader, was shocked as he shouted. He moved and wanted to protect Tan Lang. No. However, at this moment, Tan Lang's body had completely collapsed and was disappearing bit by bit. He could never imagine why this young man was so terrifyingly strong. Back then, when they had tried to snatch the wind jade from the other party's hands, the other party did not even dare to resist. Why did he suddenly erupt with such terrifying strength now? How strong was he to be able to render a 6th-order immortal god king realm expert powerless? Seeing Ravenous Wolf's body turning into ashes, Wang Xian snorted coldly. He turned to Brother Long, who had tried to save Ravenous Wolf. Boom. In the next moment, a terrifying flame appeared around Brother Long. What? Not good, hurry up and get reinforcements. The flames engulfed Brother Long. He was horrified as he stared at Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged, and shouted immediately. Boom. However, at that moment, the flames grew stronger and enveloped his body, causing him to dissipate before he could even scream. Dead. From Tan Lang's death to Brother Long's death, it all happened in the blink of an eye. However, the young man who was sitting there did not move at all. He stared coldly at them. What kind of strength was this? 8th Order Undying God King? Could an 8th Order Undying God King do it? Boom boom boom. At this moment all of them trembled and their eyes were filled with shock. They had offended someone they could not afford to offend. A middle-aged man quickly took out an item and sent it into the sky. In the sky above the windless forest, the 8 Desolation Disciples' distress signal could be heard. Wang Xian lifted his head and frowned slightly. What a bummer. He stood up slowly as waves of aura emanated from his body. This was the second time he had met this group of people. Previously, when Wang Xian was about to make a move, Invincible Zhan happened to arrive, and they managed to escape. But now they dared to provoke him by using the confinement circle. What were they trying to do? Rob. Or kill him? Ehe. Wang Xian stared at them and could not help but feel amused. They were lucky to be able to rob the Celestial Emperor. What a terrifying aura. Waves of aura emanated from Wang Xian's body. Their faces changed drastically as cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. Several middle-aged men hurriedly shouted. A few young men at the side trembled slightly as their figures turned illusory. They wanted to escape back to their own holy kingdom. Boom. But in the next moment, a terrifying aura rippled and their illusory figures gradually solidified. This is impossible, the few of them roared in disbelief as their bodies trembled. What kind of existence was this young man? A bunch of fools who are courting death. Wang Xian said plainly. The surrounding energy vibrated slightly. A wave of energy that made them despair rushed towards him. No. The remaining 20-odd people shouted in horror. Bam bam bam. In the next moment the corpses fell to the ground. Swish swish swish. As the corpses fell they lost their defense and triggered the wind. The surrounding trees launched their attacks. Branches and leaves fell on them, penetrating their bodies. It was a gruesome scene. The evils brought upon themselves were the hardest to bear. Over there. That's the location of the 8 Desolation Disciples' distress signal. They must have encountered some danger. The disciples who came this time are all divine kings. Could they be fighting for the Wind Jade? At the same time, not far away, more than a dozen figures were flying towards them at high speed. In other places, the distress signal from the Octaterra Desolation Disciples also attracted many Octaterra experts and disciples to rush over. When the disciples of the other factions saw the distress signal, their faces were filled with curiosity. Some of the disciples who were closer also rushed over. There was a high possibility that the signal flare was sent to fight for the Wind Jade. They were all here for the Wind Jade. Naturally, they wanted to take a look and see if they could get anything out of it. Someone's here so soon. At this moment, Wang Xian walked towards the group of corpses. Before he reached the group of corpses, he sensed that someone was flying towards him. There were a dozen figures and they were stronger than the people he killed. The leader was a 9th-level Immortal King Realm old man. Where are the 8 Desolation Disciples? A dozen people flew over. One of the old men scanned the surroundings and shouted in confusion. Look down? One of them shouted immediately. The dozen people looked down. When they saw the 20-odd corpses, their faces were filled with murderous intent. Their eyes quickly fell on Wang Xian, who was in front of the corpses. Surround him. One of the old men roared and emitted a strong murderous aura. Chapter 2851. The 8 Desolations must kill him. One rumble rumble rumble. Within the windless forest, a dozen experts from the 8 Desolations surrounded Wang Xian. The elder who was floating in the air was an elder of the 8 Desolations, a 9th Order Immortal God King Realm expert. The strength of the 8 Desolations used to be in the top 3 in the entire bedazzling starry sky. Now it was ranked 4th. The strength of the 8 Desolations was much stronger than the Imperial Court and the Witch Union. Elder Lai, over 20 disciples have been killed. They are all dead. A middle-aged man landed beside the corpses of the disciples and said with a bitter expression, "It was difficult to kill a divine king realm expert and they could escape in the face of danger. But they had all died here." This caused them to be extremely astonished. The 8 Desolations elders stared at Wang Xian with a gloomy face, then at the surrounding corpses and the huge pit at the side. "Elder, our disciples might have gotten into a fight with them. However, this space should have been sealed off by a treasure or a formation," the elder said. "They only broke the array before they died." An old man glanced around and guessed. At the same time, he held a confinement circle in his hand. If the young man tried to escape, he would be trapped by the confinement circle. "You are the one who killed our disciples." The elder Lai stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. The corpses below, the injuries on Wang Xian and the huge pit at the side made them think that there had been a battle and their disciples were killed. Wang Xian looked at the elder of the 8 Desolations and revealed a faint smile. "You are just courting death," he said in disdain. Boom. As soon as he finished his sentence, a terrifying murderous aura came. "Haha, good. How dare you kill our disciples? I want to see who is the one courting death." The elder Lai roared with murderous intent. "What happened? Is it the Wind Jade?" "It should be. Otherwise, why would the people from the 8 Desolations use the signal flare to ask for help?" At this time, voices came from not far away and figures flew over quickly. Such an eye-catching distress signal could be clearly seen by everyone within a radius of more than 1 billion kilometers. There was only one reason to use a signal flare in the Windless Forest, and that was to fight for the Wind Jade. Everyone who entered the Windless Forest came for Feng Yu. Seeing this signal flare, some experts naturally came over to take a look. "Let's see if we can get a share." 7 or 8 people flew over and looked over, their eyes gleaming. Someone died. The disciples of 8 Desolations have been killed. The group of people swept their gazes forward and their pupils constricted as they whispered, "This is Ba Huang's business. Everyone get lost." Elder Lai shouted coldly when he saw someone flying in their direction. The death of a disciple of Ba Huang was a major event. When the 7 or 8 people heard the cold shout of the 8 Desolation elder, they did not dare to anger him. They retreated a bit and looked on in surprise. Buzz. When Elder Lai saw them retreating, he waved his arm and a confinement circle appeared in his hand. "Brat, I want to know what kind of background you have that allowed you to kill a disciple of Ba Huang." He stared coldly at Wang Xian and asked. For killing a disciple of Ba Huang, not only did they want to eliminate this young man, but they also wanted the forces behind him to pay a heavy price. How could it be so easy to kill a disciple of a top force in the bedazzling star galaxy? As long as he dared to kill them, not only would the killer have to pay with his life, but the forces behind him would also pay the price. The reason why he did not attack Wang Xian immediately was because he wanted to know the forces behind him. "Oh, he." Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and revealed a cold smirk in his eyes. "You're courting death. Even if you don't say it, Ba Huang can dig it out." Elder Lai growled in a deep voice and locked the confinement circle in his hand towards Wang Xian. Swish swish swish. "Elder Lai, what's going on?" The confinement circle attacked Wang Xian. Wang Xian stood there without moving, quietly watching the confinement circle lock him in place. At this time, more people flew over, but they were experts from Ba Huang. "Elder Zhou, someone killed our disciple." Elder Lai swept his gaze over and said. A group of more than 10 people was led by an elder from Ba Huang. The Windless Forest was a treasure land. During the windless days, Ba Huang would naturally send people over. In fact, they would send quite a number of people. They were only a part of the group. "What? Someone dared to kill our disciples." The burly old man who flew overheard Elder Lai's words. His face was filled with killing intent as he scanned the surroundings. His gaze finally landed on Wang Xian. "He killed our disciples. Killing him would be letting him off too easily. Capture him and let him experience the pain of being suppressed by Ba Huang." Elder Zhou roared with a face full of rage. "That's right. Let them know the consequences of killing our disciples." The surrounding experts from the 8 Desolations shouted coldly. "That young man is in trouble. I wonder why he killed our disciples." "But that young man doesn't look like an expert. There are 7th Order Immortal God King Realm experts among the dead. Look at his injuries. He must have fought with the disciples from Ba Huang for a long time. He might have a trump card." The 7 or 8 people who had arrived first looked ahead and discussed among themselves. "Little junior sister, why are we here?" "Aya, we're just here to take a look. It's hard for us to get the Wind Jade anyway. Let's see what's going on here." Just as the 7 to 8 people were discussing, A voice came from behind. The 7 to 8 people who arrived first swept a glance over and ignored it. That's Wang Xian. It's him. What's going on? The group that arrived was Yelu Ying and her group. They had been searching for the Wind Jade for the past 2 days. It was a pity that after Wang Xian left, and with more and more people entering, they didn't have much to gain. Yelu Ying, who loved to join in the fun, wanted to come over. But she didn't expect the figure in front to be Wang Xian. Fourth senior sister, who was the strongest among them, recognized him immediately. She looked around and her expression changed slightly. Let's go over. The fourth senior sister hesitated for a moment, and her expression changed. Seeing that the 4 of them recognized the young man who was the enemy of Ba Huang, the 7 to 8 people who were watching from the side looked over in surprise. In front of them, the 2 Ba Huang elders squinted their eyes when they heard the commotion. Since he dared to kill the disciples of Ba Huang, the young man in front of them would not only pay the price, but also the forces he was in. Now his companions were here. The cultivators from Ba Huang all had cold looks in their eyes. Chapter 2852. 8 Desolation must kill him. 2-inch Wang Xian. Fourth senior sister stared at Wang Xian, who was surrounded in the center, and shouted. At the same time she took out a communication stone plate, pressed it and put it away. She gritted her teeth and led the group of senior and junior sisters inside. She could understand the situation in front of her with a glance. However, her master had instructed her to ensure Wang Xian's safety. Now that she had met him, she couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Even if the other party's strength wasn't something she could handle. When Wang Xian heard the voices behind him, he also sensed Yelu Ying and the other 3. However, he didn't expect them to be involved. Given the current situation, they would be the ones trapped if they were here. Of course, this was Wang Xian's point of view. To Wang Xian, the current situation could be resolved with a snap of his fingers. Wang Xian, are you alright? Why are there so many injuries on your body? Yelu Ying and the rest flew over and asked with concern when they saw the blood stains on Wang Xian and his pale complexion. I'm fine. Wang Xian shook his head plainly. I didn't expect you to have companions. Great, let's kill them all. The 8 Desolation disciples who surrounded Wang Xian didn't stop Yelu Ying and the rest from flying over. Instead they looked on coldly. Since their companions were here, they would just have to pay the price together. Wang Xian, what happened? Fourth senior sister asked Wang Xian with a change of expression when she heard the experts from 8 Desolation. It's nothing. The disciples from 8 Desolation saw that I was injured and wanted to snatch some things. So I killed them. Wang Xian smiled at them and answered casually. However, his words made fourth senior sister, Yelu Ying, and the rest pale. Killing disciples from 8 Desolation without a second thought? This was beyond imagination. Wang Xian, hold on for a while. Our master will be here soon. Fourth senior sister gritted her teeth and whispered to Wang Xian. Wang. As soon as fourth senior sister finished her sentence, confinement circles flew towards them. Given their strength, they couldn't escape from the 8 Desolation elders. Confinement circles floated above their heads. This made their hearts sink. Capture them all. Since they dared to kill our disciples, we'll make them pay 100 times the price. Elder Zhou said coldly. Wait a minute. It was you guys from 8 Desolations who coveted Wang Xian's treasures first. That's why we struck. Fourth senior sister's expression changed and she immediately shouted. No matter what the reason is, since you dared to kill our disciples, you must pay the price. Elder Lai said with a cold expression. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding disciples were ready to take action. We are disciples of the sanctuary. The fourth senior sister's face turned pale when she sensed the pressure around her. Hearing her words, Elder Lai and Elder Zhou's gazes froze slightly. Sacred region. Do you think that just because a disciple of the sacred region killed a disciple of our 8 Desolation, he can escape this calamity? Or could it be that we, the 8 Desolation, are afraid of the sacred region? Elder Zhou's face was cold as he glared at them. No, we just want to figure out who's right and who's wrong. Fourth senior sister immediately shook her head. The sanctuary was weaker than the 8 Desolations. She revealed her identity not to threaten the elders of the 8 Desolations, but to buy time. She had to wait for her master to come and deal with this matter. The only thing she could do was to buy time. No matter what, the name of the sacred region was still useful, and the elders of the 8 Desolations would not be as unscrupulous as before. They're disciples of the sacred region? A disciple of the sacred region killed a disciple of the 8 desolations? This is not a small matter. If we're not careful, it could cause a conflict between the two forces. I didn't expect them to be disciples of the sacred region. Now they're fighting each other. The surrounding people were slightly shocked when they heard what they said, and their faces were filled with shock. Since it involved the sacred region, this matter was not as simple as it seemed. Just as they were talking, some people rushed over. When they saw the people in front of them, they whispered to each other. No matter how strong you are, you must die for killing a disciple of the 8 desolations. Even the sacred region is useless. Elder Zhou roared with a face full of killing intent. Our master will be here soon, and he will give you an explanation. The 4th senior sister's expression changed slightly, and she shouted again. Master. The experts of the 8 desolations squinted their eyes. Kill that brat first and capture the other 4. I'm curious to see how the sacred region will give us an explanation later. However, what the 4 senior sister and the rest did not expect was that the 8 desolations elder did not give them any time and gave the order directly. Shit. Wang Xian, be careful. The 4th senior sister and the rest were shocked as they quickly warned Wang Xian. The name of the sacred region was useless to the other party. Damn, let's see who dares to touch Boss Wang. But all of a sudden, a rather arrogant voice came from outside. A silhouette flew over to them. Boss Wang. The newcomer, Invincible Combat. He was also attracted by the distress signal from the 8 desolations. The windless forest was not huge. Invincible Combat loved this kind of commotion the most. Naturally, he was very interested in this matter and rushed over immediately. However, when he arrived, Invincible Combat panicked when he saw Wang Xian. How dare someone from the 8 desolations want to kill Boss Wang? Brother Invincible, don't get involved in this. At the back, several young men hurriedly spoke to Invincible Combat. Their expressions changed as they had a bad feeling about this. Tianxin's expression also changed as he looked at Invincible Combat. He wanted to reach out and stop him. This concerned the 8 desolations, and it was not something they could get involved in, even if they had a strong background. What's this Invincible Combat for? Is he looking for trouble? If he really gets into trouble, even his master might not be able to settle it. Several middle-aged men behind Tianxin said with a sullen expression. Boss Wang. Invincible Combat ignored the shouts behind him as he flew to Wang Xian's side and shouted again. Oh, what a coincidence. Wang Xian asked with a smile when he saw Invincible Combat. He was nonchalant as though the situation before him had nothing to do with him. Hee Boss Wang, this is fate for us. Don't worry Boss Wang. No one can bully you in the territory of my Invincible Combat. Invincible Combat smiled at Wang Xian as he spoke. Following which, he turned around and looked at the people from the 8 desolations. He lifted his head slightly and said, Why? My boss Invincible Combat isn't someone you can bully. Invincible Combat. The elders from the 8 desolations frowned when they saw Invincible Combat suddenly intervening. Chapter 2853. Invincible Zhan was the last disciple of the Upper Water God Emperor. At the same time, the Upper Water God Emperor was also a veteran God Emperor in 8 Wilderness. The Upper Water God Emperor wasn't an Emperor God of 8 Wilderness, but he was related to the 8 Wilderness God Emperors. But he was still the last disciple of an Emperor God. They frowned and stared at Wang Xian coldly. They didn't expect a young man to attract the last disciple of the Sacred Region and Upper Water God Emperor. Young Master Invincible Zhan, no one can kill a disciple of our 8 Wilderness and leave safely. If we let him go, where will our dignity be? Young Master Invincible Zhan, please don't make things difficult for us. If we have no choice, we will have to offend you. Elder Lai frowned and reminded Invincible Zhan plainly. Currently, there were already hundreds of people gathered around. They were experts from the 8 Desolation 6 directions and the other regions. At this time, if they were to let go of someone who killed their disciple, they would really lose all their face. By then, others would say that they were cowards. After all, Invincible Zhan only had an Emperor God backing him. The strength of the Sacred Region was weaker than them. Offend? I want to say the same thing to you. If you don't let it go, I will have to offend you. Invincible Zhan looked cold. He waved his arm and water rings appeared in his hand. Each water ring contained a terrifying aura. This aura made everyone's heart palpitate. That's the divine weapon used by the Upper Water God Emperor in the past. It's the Heavy Water Ring, the famous divine weapon of the Upper Water God Emperor before he became an emperor. It said that this divine weapon is extremely powerful and has its own intelligence. I didn't expect it to be in the hands of Invincible Jean, as such a treasure can allow Invincible Jean to fight beyond his level. He can even go against a pinnacle immortal king. When the heavy water ring appeared, everyone was slightly startled. Their faces were filled with astonishment. The faces of the experts from 8 Desolate also changed. Their expressions were slightly unsightly. Invincible Jean, are you trying to make an enemy out of 8 Wilderness? Have you considered the consequences? Elder Zhou stared at Jean Fa Wudi with a murderous look on his face as he growled. The rest of the experts from 8 Wilderness were also looking coldly. I don't care who you are. If you dare to touch my boss who is invincible in combat, you'll have to ask me first. Invincible Battle Law raised his head proudly. Brother Wudi, we'd better not get involved in this matter. At the side, a few young men who followed Invincible shouted anxiously. At this moment, their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. The other party was an elder of Ba Huang, and that young man had killed a disciple of Ba Huang. This was no small matter. Once Invincible Battle Law was involved and the 8 Desolates were really angered, even the Water God Emperor might not be able to do anything about it. At that time there would be a lot of trouble. Wudi, you have to think about it carefully. When Heaven Heart saw this, his expression changed and he wanted to fly towards him. Little junior sister, let's not get involved. This Invincible Battle Law is a troublemaker. Behind her, a middle-aged man immediately pulled Tian Xian's arm and shook his head at her. Miss, the other party is the 8 Desolations. If you really anger the 8 Desolations, even the Water God Emperor will have to pay a price. The other middle-aged man hurriedly said to Tianxin. This, Heaven Xian's face was filled with anxiety as he looked at Jean Fa Wudi uneasily. It's all right. I'd like to see who dares to touch Boss Wang with me around. Tiske. Jean Fa said to Tian Xian and the others. He snorted lightly and stared at the disciples of Ba Huang. Boss Wang, find a chance to escape. I'll help you. At the same time, Invincible Battle Law transmitted his voice to Wang Xian. Wang Xian looked at Invincible Battle Law before looking at Yelu Ying and the rest of his senior and junior sisters. He revealed a faint smile. Currently he had the combat strength of an emperor god. However, he was severely injured after being attacked by the tree. Last time he could recover from his previous injury in about a day. But now he would need at least a month. This was secondary. Now that he was severely injured, his combat strength was only around the 9th level God King realm. Of course, if he exerted his full strength, he could still maintain the offensive strength of an emperor for a period of time. But after exerting his full strength, his injuries would undoubtedly worsen. Therefore to him it was unnecessary. The Sky Array Orochi would arrive soon. All he had to do was wait here. Moreover, seeing some fleas jumping around in front of him was like watching monkeys. Invincible Battle Law was still the same as before. He was very loyal. In the past, when he was being hunted down, this lad had helped him several times. He would always remember this favor in his heart. The behavior of Yelu Ying and the rest of her senior and junior sisters surprised Wang Xian. Facing a force like Ba Huang, they actually dared to stand in front of him. Someone worth befriending. Just like what a rich second-generation heir on Earth had said. I don't care if others are rich when I make friends. Anyway, none of them are as rich as me. Wang Xian was the same now. I don't care if others are strong or weak when I make friends. Anyway, none of them are as strong as me. Of course, these words were a little arrogant. But in the entire starry sky he was qualified to say so. Phew. Beside Wang Xian, Yelu Ying and the rest heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Invincible Battle Law. His appearance could greatly reduce the pressure on them. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Humph, there's no need to talk nonsense with him. He killed our disciples and we don't care what faction he is from. Moreover, he killed our disciples. We will ask the Sanctuary and the Water God Emperor if he wants to start a war. But suddenly at this moment, a dignified voice was heard. Hearing this voice, the cultivators from 8 Wilderness immediately showed respect on their faces. Guardians. Elder Zhou, Elder Lai, and the rest immediately shouted respectfully. 111. At this time, another 3 figures rushed over. 3 old men. The old man in the middle held a horsetail whisk in his hand and had a cold look on his face. The other 2 also exuded a terrifying aura. 3 divine king pinnacle experts and 3 guardians of Ba Huang. His words made everyone's expression change. The arrival of the guardians of Ba Huang did not surprise the surrounding people. Because there were guardians in the windless forest. When the signal flare was fired, the guardians of Ba Huang had enough time to rush over. But to everyone's surprise, the guardians of Ba Huang were so domineering. They wanted to kill that young man and questioned the water god emperor of the sanctuary if they wanted to start a war. As the guardians of Ba Huang, they were already at the top of Ba Huang. They were also qualified to say such words. In particular, the old man in the middle holding the horsetail whisk was the descendant of a god emperor of Ba Huang. Damn Boss Wang, let's get ready to escape. Invincible Battle Law said anxiously when he saw the guardians of Ba Huang coming over. Chapter 2854. You can search for Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System on Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. The protector of Ba Huang had arrived and did not put Invincible in his eyes. Invincible knew that there might be trouble ahead. Escape. This was the only way. When Yelu Ying and the rest saw the protector of Ba Huang, their faces turned pale. Escape? In this 8 desolation 6 directions, you killed our disciples and now you want to escape? The protector of Ba Huang with the horsetail whisk in his hand sneered when he heard Invincible's words. Invincible, don't cause trouble for your master and don't think that your master can protect you if you make a mistake. Even your master, the Divine Emperor, can't protect you if you make an enemy out of Ba Huang. He stared coldly at Invincible Fighter and warned in a low voice. This has nothing to do with my master. It's all my own doing. Invincible raised his head and snorted coldly as he spoke. Hee, if it's your own fault for being invincible, then we'll kill you. The protector of Ba Huang stared at Invincible coldly and said coldly. In their opinion, without the Water God Emperor, provoking their 8 desolates alone was no different from courting death. Invincible, come over here. We won't be involved in this. Tianxin was anxious when he heard the protector of Ba Huang. He immediately said to Invincible. Heavens will, how could someone as loyal as me, Invincible Fighter, do something so cowardly and cowardly? Let me teach you guys a lesson today. Invincible said coldly. Brother Invincible is too loyal. But I'm afraid we're in big trouble. Let's contact his senior brothers and get them to contact the Divine Emperor. Oh no, our brother Invincible is stubborn. Even 10 bulls can't pull him back. If Ba Huang really wants to be ruthless, brother Invincible is doomed. The young men's faces were filled with anxiety as they spoke. This Invincible is really loyal. He would rather offend Ba Huang to protect that young man. If Invincible really offends Ba Huang, the protector of Ba Huang might really kill him. Who's that young man? Why haven't I seen him before? I'm afraid he's not simple to be protected by Invincible and a disciple of the sacred sect. Not simple? How could he be more powerful than Ba Huang? But that young man's expression didn't change. In the surroundings, more and more people were attracted by the signal flare, and they were all discussing in low voices. We must kill that brat. Kill everyone who dares to help him. The protector with the horsetail whisk gave the order with a cold expression. Hearing this order, Invincible's expression changed slightly. Master is here, Master, you're finally here. However, at this moment, a surprised voice came from the side. Hearing this voice, everyone was slightly taken aback. Another one? A saint-level expert? Everyone quickly looked in the direction of Yelu Ying's gaze. Buzz. Right at this moment, a graceful and elegant woman dressed in green flew over to them. The woman didn't look young. She walked in the windless forest and came before Wang Xian in the next moment. The eyes of the 3 protectors froze when they saw the woman. Sanctuary Hong Fengyan. Hong Fengyan looked at Wang Xian, who was heavily injured, and took out an elixir pill for him. She turned around, looked at the 3 protectors and cupped her fists. Along the way, Yelu Ying and the rest had already told her the details through the communication stone plate. What? The protectors of the sanctuary want to protect the person who killed our disciples? Or is he also a disciple of the sanctuary? Facing off at the same level, the protectors of the sanctuary took a few steps forward and fixed their eyes on Hong Fengyan. Although I'm a protector of the sanctuary, this has nothing to do with the sanctuary. Moreover, he isn't a disciple of the sanctuary. I wonder how you guys can resolve this feud? Hong Fengyan looked at them emotionlessly. With a wave of her arm, more than 100 pieces of wind jade flew towards them. Among the wind jade there was a divine weapon, a pinnacle undying God King divine weapon. Sis, what a generous offer. Taking out such a valuable item in exchange for the young man's life. This seems like the young man is very important to the protector of the sanctuary. A pinnacle undying God King divine weapon. If the protectors of the sanctuary agree, they'll be making a killing, Some people around them were discussing in low voices. Even the eyes of the experts from Ba Huang lit up and their hearts were shaken. While Boss Wang, who is this beautiful big sister? Invincible Battle Law was slightly surprised by Hong Fengyan's generosity and winked at Wang Xian. Wang Xian glanced at him and ignored him. He took out the communication stone plate and sent another message. They were a little slow. The lives of the disciples of 8 Desolation cannot be compared to some inanimate objects. If we accept it, won't we be able to kill the disciples of 8 Desolation as we please after taking some treasures? Humph, you really think our Ba Huang is some small sect? We must kill him. No one can protect him. Let's see who dares to help him. The Octoterra protector with the horsetail whisk stared at Hong Fengyan and ordered. Boom boom boom. The 8 Desolation disciples who were already prepared immediately unleashed their powerful auras. Boom. However, when their auras were released, Hong Fengyan's body also surged with a powerful aura. I must protect him today. The surrounding people seemed to have heard the howling of the wind. Hong Fengyan seemed to be standing in the center of the howling wind as she stared coldly at everyone from 8 Desolation. Fine. If you want to protect him, then die. The 3 protectors of 8 Desolation revealed murderous intent in their eyes. The old man with the horsetail whisk in the middle moved and attacked Hong Fengyan. The other 2 protectors followed closely behind. Oh no, they're going to fight. Peak Divine King Realm combat power. Let's retreat. When the surrounding crowd saw this, their faces changed drastically as they roared loudly. Invincible, come over. Junior sister, let's retreat. Invincible Battle Law is courting death. Does he really think he can do whatever he wants just because he has an Emperor God Master? Junior sister, it's better if you don't come into contact with such reckless people in the future. Tianxin shouted at Invincible Battle Law. The 2 middle-aged men behind her immediately carried her and retreated. Fuck Boss Wang. Let's prepare to escape later. We're good at escaping. Invincible Battle Law's mouth twitched as he spoke to Wang Xian. Wang Xian stood there without moving or paying attention to Invincible Battle Law. Looking at Hong Fengyan who was protecting him, his eyes flickered. When Hong Fengyan saw the 3 protectors of 8 Desolation charging at her, her expression didn't change at all. In the sky above her, a tornado formed. In the next moment, the tornado slowly solidified into a green gourd. Latest chapter of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System. Reading link of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System. /39,000 / download link of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System. /39,000 / reading link of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System. /39,000 / for convenience of reading next time, you can click on the Collections button below to record this time. We, the 8 Desolation, must kill him. Read the record. If you like Invincible Dragon Cultivation System, you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.